Hi, today we're here today talking about how to find the right digital product partner. Kimberly Cassidy from Polymath Consulting, and with me today, Ronak from Sunflower Labs and Matt Van Vleet from Matt Van Vleet Squared, MV Squared LLC. Matt is a serial entrepreneur who's spent probably more years than he wants to admit to in the software business, and he and I have actually worked together quite a bit over the years, as has Ronak, and we were wanting to chat today and help people out with how to find the right digital partner. Matt's built a lot of software over the years, and he's used a variety of digital partners as well as being one himself. So we wanted to ask him some questions and get some great thoughts around that. All right. So Matt, whenever you are looking for a digital partner, when you're going to build a new product and you're looking for somebody to help actually build the product, what are some of the key things that you look for in a partner?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. So I spent a good part of my career as a consultant, and also now I'm procuring digital partners. So I've kind of seen this from both sides. And I think the first thing you need to think about is what capabilities do you have in-house? Maybe, so why are you going to build a partner? Maybe you have business domain expertise, but you need technical expertise. Maybe your organization is already good at making software, but you don't have the capacity. Different situations are going to cause you to look for a different type of partner as well as engage with them differently.
So when you're thinking about that difference between like business knowledge, domain knowledge, or technology knowledge, how important do each of those pieces play? So from your own personal experience, I know from working with you, you have a couple of software activities in play right now. Thinking about you have a business idea and you're trying to actually engage a digital partner to help build it. So you're looking for a development team. You've identified that you have the business knowledge and you're looking for somebody to help partner with you from the technology knowledge. What are some of the things that you may care about in investigating that type of a partner? Would there be like specific tech stacks, or would you be open to what they're using, or along those lines?
Yeah, so when I have a product company and I'm trying to bring in a partner to build the 1.0 product or to build some new features, what I want is a company that has the ability to deliver something to production, not just development skills. So can they, set up environments? Can they build the DevOps and the build and deploy scripts to get to production? Can they build the software? Do they have the project management and the process that can work with us to get the requirements, understand what we need to build, and then build it? So it's not just can you write the code, but can you design the software? Do you have the user experience and UI expertise as well? So in the case when I am trying to build a product, I want someone as a partner that can bring a team that has all of those capabilities. My size, right? My products, the first version, I don't want to spend $1 billion on. So I need an organization that can deliver all those things, but I don't have to have a 20-person team in order to do it. I need an organization that can give me a small, high-powered team to get the software out the door. Even though I have some of those experiences, I don't have the time or recent experience to do all of those practices myself.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Matt, I think first, thanks for coming on this call and helping us on this topic. My question for founders, primarily we see a lot of startup founders when they're starting something in very specific domain, and they're looking for a company who has a very specific a domain knowledge. And from our experience, we know is sometimes it matters, but not all the time. You also have to be technologist. So what kind of the advice will you give to wait between a team which has all the technical expertise, but they may have only partial expertise on the very specific domain knowledge problem that product could be around?
Yeah, it's actually, sometimes it's counterintuitive. Yes, you want the domain expertise, and hopefully you have it in your company, and if you don't, you may need to find some subject matter expertise there. But also, some of the power is taking technology from other domains and bringing them into your domain. So if you have everybody that's worked in, let's say, insurance, and you're building an insurance product, then the coolest new idea, because you might be locked in. If you have someone that says, well, I worked over in this manufacturing space, and we used a system that would integrate with email in this different way, and you may say, well, let's apply that to insurance. We don't even have to invent a new thing. We're just taking something that's happening in other industries and bringing it to our industry. So I think you want people who are good learners, open to learning, can be in this collaborative process, because you don't want people to just code what you tell them to code. But over my 30-plus year career, I've worked in probably 15 different domains, and I've learned everything from private jets to insurance to banking. And so you want to find a partner that's curious, that really wants to understand the value this application is supposed to provide. But rarely do you actually want them to be the ones to say, for example, they know the algorithm, they know the science, they know the insurance regulations. There are specialty firms that specialize, that may know regulations better than your organization, but a lot of times your technology partner is going to have a variety of experiences and be able to bring things from one industry to another and help you innovate in your product.
Yeah, thanks, Matt, for that clarification, because that's usually the burning questions for many of the founders when they are choosing the partner. The second question is related to choosing the size of the company. So we've seen, as a startup or something, you're starting something small, the right size makes a lot of difference. And like, too small is too small and too big is like too expensive, right? So I want to get some your advice over that as well.
Right. Interestingly, most of my career I've worked for relatively small companies. So I've had, worked for a 1,000-person consulting company. Then I had a startup that started with 3 people, grew, eventually got bought by IBM. Had another consulting company that grew, that got bought by a company with half a billion, like 500,000 consultants. And in that you learn that if you have 500,000 people, you can't profitably write a $30,000, $50,000, $100,000 proposal. It may cost you, just to set up the work, that much money, because you have to have a certain level of approval. There's things, so you can't go to the biggest companies if you don't have really big budgets that need things over the long haul. Also, you don't really want to go on the other extreme. Maybe you have 3 to 5 employees and you're a startup. You don't necessarily want to go to a one-man shop or somewhere that has 3 to 5 people, because you're not going to be able to leverage enough variety. You're not getting the advantage of actually going with an external partner. So I think it's important to know, all right, what are the types of projects these consulting companies do, and can they do they target projects my size? There's some companies who they might do a $30,000 project, but their goal is $5 to $10 million per account per year. There's some companies that are really good at doing small, $30,000 to $250,000 projects, and that's what they do. So I think it's important to know. I would tend to look for someone, if you're a startup that's bigger than you, if you're a middle-sized company, I would look, to some of the bigger companies, but a lot of times you're still going to be priced out, and you're not going to be their key focus. So as a mid-sized company, maybe you have a few hundred or 1,000 people in your IT department. I would be looking at, are there small, nimble partners that can help me and that I'm going to to be an important customer to them.
When you're engaging with businesses like that, Matt, and you're looking at, I'm a small to mid-sized company, and I'm looking to pick up a development partner. Is the level of integration with your company, how do you consider that? So thinking about like hiring somebody who's fully integrated, they're sitting with your team, they're being managed by your managers, or someone who's partially integrated, where you're kind of working with a technical expert on their end, versus being completely standalone, where you're hiring an entire standalone team, and you're pretty much handing off a project to the team in its entirety. Tell me some of the differences when you want each of those approaches.
Right. If you already have a well-functioning team and it's working well and you just need capacity, sometimes you'll just procure to add a few people to your team and kind of do staff augmentation and add to your staff. If you're building a product that's new and you don't have the full team, what I tend to do is I want to find someone that has the ability to deliver an outcome. But then it's not that I say, go build me a system that does X, Y, Z, and then in 3 months or 6 months, they come back and give that to me. So I tend to want to find someone who has a team that I can work with, and I can be very collaborative. We can set a goal for the next sprint or a week or two's work. We can then, meet regularly during that process to answer any questions. We can then demo on how did that work, and then kind of retrospect on how did that happen. That's the way I tend to work right now, because I don't have a lot of full-time staff. The model in between is kind of a hybrid where you have a team, or you're trying to build a team and you want them to learn how to work effectively. You may have a couple people on your side working with an organization. And in that case, I tend to have a model where I have my team follow my partner's lead. So bring a partner that already has teams that know how to build software, know how to do things in a productive way and so forth. Have my team join in and become team members. And then over the course of that project, it can kind of flip to where over time, as my team owns more and so forth, I want the partner to get them into the running the cadence, them into reviewing the code, setting the standards. And then eventually you can be back in that model where the partner is coaching, the team, but you're no longer dependent on the partner, right? You still could depend on them, but you're not needing them in order to get the most basic things done.
And thinking of how interactive you are with those teams, Matt, how important is the culture of the company that you're working with?
Yeah, ultimately, I think when you have a partner, trust and transparency is the key, right? So if you don't have a partner that's willing to give you visibility when some things are going badly, give you kind of the reality of where you're really at, you're not going to succeed, because, if it was easy, software projects wouldn't fail on a regular basis, right? So this is hard stuff. It's complicated. So you need that trust and transparency, but that's a two-way street, in that, you can't expect there never to be a problem, for there never to be bad news, for something never to go wrong. Or you're going to teach the partner that everything has to be perfect before they can show it to you, and therefore you're not going to have the transparency. So that culture, and the only way to do that ultimately is you got to build the culture, right? It grows. You can't just write down something and say this is what it's going to be, right? So you want to set an expectation, but then you have to model that behavior and open communication and real clarity. One of the things we do with all of our vendors is make sure that we're participating in their retrospectives. So if they're having something to say, well, when we do the demo, we tell them what we liked and didn't like about the features they built. When we do the retrospective, we talk about what worked and didn't work in the process, right? There's some things that are highly technical to say, well, when we're using this piece of technology, we need to do that, or we needed to. But there's always, look, we should have prototyped that new technology before we dug in and tried to just start building something, or we got to get better at estimating in these areas, right? You want to collaborate and just constantly be getting better, and it's got to be safe to do that. That's a cultural thing that, you need a partner that's willing to engage with you that way.
One of the questions regarding the entrepreneur who is trying to make the digital product, and they do not come from the technology background. And when they are finding the partner for building their digital product, the technology stack's been adopted or been used. Some practices goes around for building the software, the maturity of the building the software. How do they validate that? Because when they are comparing the more than one digital partner, they all look similar from outside, and you cannot judge the book by the cover. So if something along the line, if you can help the founders, that would be great.
I would say you can partner with that knows the technology. So, a lot of what I do is I have that technology background. I tend to engage people who have an idea, who want to build a product or a company, and they know their business. Maybe they're learning experts or real estate experts, and they know that really well, but they don't know technology. So they end up leaning on me to help advise them on the technology. But then bringing a partner that knows, has a stack. In that case, if you don't have that technical expertise, you want to make sure you're bringing in a partner that has an opinion, right? They don't just say, well, we'll do whatever you want, because you need someone that's actually can come and say, look, there's 3 ways that you could do it, but we prefer to work in these technologies in this way. If you don't have the expertise, you need someone that has an opinion and is kind of building experience and has that expertise themselves.
Yeah, makes sense. And often when you are working with a remote team, let's say your digital partner are not co-located, and some of the team members working with you or your team members, they may or may not be in the same time zone. So the communications, right, I think has become very essential for any successful project or delivery. So how do you kind of keep up with the time zone, the communication? What form of the communications you will be using? Because I know all the remote engineers may be working on the project here.
Yeah, so this has changed a lot over my career. So I used to travel around the country and even the world. I did a project in the UK. We had a product, but they wanted us to make all the enhancements on site just from a communication and a trust perspective, right? So I ended up spending months in the UK because they wanted face-to-face engagement. And now in a post-COVID world, people all over the world and different countries are collaborating and so forth. So the first thing is all together on site, or you're all over the world, is you need to have a working agreement of how are we going to work together. You need to then communicate in retrospect to say, how is that working? So we work with teams in India, and we end up having 4 or 5 hours of overlap where we can work. So they're shifted to working later, and we're shifted to working a little bit earlier. So there's overlap time. So first of all, you just need that working agreement, make sure there's overlap time. We then have a cadence. So there's certain things we do every week, every month, every quarter, every day. So we may have a daily stand-up. So let's find a time where we can all come together and just, even for 15 minutes, everybody can say, here's what I'm working on, here's what's blocking me, here's what I'm going to do next, right? So that we can make sure that there's good communication. So that cadence kind of instills certain expectations of this is what we're going to do every day, this is when we're going to do demos. And it makes sure that there's built-in collaboration time into the process, right? And then there's a set of tools. So there's video conferencing, there's Slack or other message boards, there's WhatsApp or texting tools. What you want to do is make it as lightweight as possible to collaborate. And I flew to Europe, I flew to California. If you get rid of 6 hours of travel a week, you're probably going to get more software done, not less. But if people are remote, you've got to have expectations, like when are they available, when is it flexible, and good tools to communicate. And then we've had great success with it.
So I think, Ronak, did you have any other questions that we remain unasked for Matt on the topic?
No, I think we pretty much covered. Unless, Matt, you think anything we did not cover in this call and is worth mentioning, when someone choosing the digital partner, we love to know that as well.
At some point, am I supposed to give a plug for Sunflower, or is this just pure content and we're not?
I think
We
it's
haven't
a
mentioned
pure content.
Sunflower's name really.
I know.
No, I think it's
about
fine.
that
I think
either,
it doesn't. Yeah, I think it's a pure content. We just wasn't focused. We wanted to provide a value through this content. So
okay, yeah, I think we probably are in good shape. We should do a closing, but I started to get into agile stuff and what the cadence is and how things work, which I think could be its own topic. I think for this topic, I think we got it pretty well.